Hi, good morning, and welcome to this morning's presentation on how to use SBI to strengthen the sales process. Before I begin, I'd like to just express our gratitude and appreciation to this organization for working with us. We thoroughly enjoy the experience that we have with your sales team and hope that what we offer is making a difference. Certainly invite any of you who have suggestions, recommendations, things that we can do better to please bring those forward, because we do recognize that you're our client and want to service you as best as we can. What I'm going to be talking about today is how you can leverage our organization and some of the tools that we provide to strengthen your sales process and differentiate yourself from your competitors. Now, before I begin, let me just say I am not an expert on sales processes, haven't written any books on how to be an effective salesperson, really not my bailiwick, and I'm sure that there are many others who have a lot more experience in that area than I do. So what I'm going to be talking about today is really just our perception of what we have seen working with your organization over the last several years, and what we think you're trying to do, and how we feel that we're attempting to support some of those things. So this slide kind of talks about the prospect expectation. What are they looking for from you? And again, this is from our perspective. So one thing, we get a lot of questions from salespeople about data, trying to position data to start conversations with prospects. So from our perspective, one of the things that you're attempting to do is connect with the prospect and help them learn about industry, about averages, about things that can help them better understand their organization, which leads me into the second line there, help me understand my business. Unfortunately, a lot of these people who work in these realms of HCM understand a certain portion of their business, but there's a lot of pieces that are misunderstood or not comprehensively understood, and especially by C-level folks. So one of the objectives that we feel you have is to help those prospects understand their businesses. The third line there, help understand the challenges. We feel like we've got some great tools to intelligently and effectively help these organizations not only understand their business, but what some of the key challenges that they have are. And then the next line obviously would be help me find solutions to those challenges and how to address those problems, gap fill, make things better, automate things better, do things more intelligently with less people, in a more streamlined way with less risk. And hopefully this last line, create a relationship of trust, is one that I think starts well before we get involved, probably spans the other four line items there, and if effective, obviously transitions into doing a deal, and even on to how that prospect gets serviced in implementation. So what I'd like to do is just kind of talk about each one of these things and how we feel our organization and our tools help support those things. So the Clearview Analyzer is our proprietary web-based software that we have licensed to your organization to use. And it produces powerful analytics that can help these prospects learn average levels of staffing, IT costs, outsourcing fees, the manager engagement costs. And obviously we have data that can give you that based on industry, on size, on platform, any type of benchmark that you want to look at. And our hope is that by providing these analytic tools, you can leverage our data and produce reports and different items that can be used to have meaningful discussions, and that you can leverage to have credible discussions and help your prospects learn and hopefully initiate that interest in taking a look at what they're doing today. So I want to just kind of go into the analyzer real quick and show you how that works. I've got a little link here to this, and I'm going into the dashboard. My dashboard may look a little bit different than most of you because I'm an admin, but as you go into this, you'll see these same links as you log in. And one of the things that you have here is this Sales Tools link. If you click that and click the Analytics button, Obviously, you can get to where this allows you to look at some of the analytics. And what we have produced here is a hopefully easy to use ad hoc reporting tool that allows you to access all of the data from the Clearview studies that have been done over the last 10 or 15 years. You'll see that I have a lot of reports out here already created. Those reports can be stored and libraried, so we can look at ROI reports, we can look at TCO reports that have been created, and one of our objectives is to obviously work with your organization to produce as many of these as we need so that you can just grab them and run them very easily rather than create them. But I'm going to show you how to create one. So last week I got an email. Salesperson contacted me and said, you know, I've got a prospect that is a PeopleSoft in-house prospect. They have 6,000 employees. Is there a way that you can help me with, you know, some information around you know, what some of the average costs might be for an organization that's configured like they are. So I'm going to go out here and just create a report. I'll call it test. We'll just call it demo report. But I could call it anything that I wanted to. I can also add tags, which are the filters that kind of as these are stored. I'm going to pick the ones that I already have, and I'll say that it's a TCO report. And I can put anything in here, you know, that I want. I'll just say my report is great, but you know, obviously I may want to craft a specific message for a client and say, you know, this report shows you X, Y, and Z. I can click public, which makes this report available to every other salesperson who has an account in SBSI, and I can click to make that active or deactivated anytime that I want. I will click next here and set up my data filters. So one of the things I have is I set these base filters. I can decide how I want to run this report. Do I want to look at it by industry, by platform group, which would be, you know, outsourcer, ERP, SaaS provider, or do I want to do it based on a size range? Because I want to pull some averages on PeopleSoft, I'm going to go ahead and pick platform. And I'm going to choose as my base metric platform PeopleSoft. And as you can see here, we've got a lot of you know, different vendors that we've done work with that we can pick from. I'll pick PeopleSoft. I'm going to run my report on payroll and on HR. I could run it on all of the pillars that Clearview has, but I'm going to pick those two because that's my focus and what I want to draw their attention to. Next, I can choose to either consolidate the pillars, which means it's going to give me the averages that I configure kind of combined for payroll HR, or I can uncheck this and have it show me specifics for payroll and specifics for HR. So that I have a little bit neater report, I'm going to go ahead and consolidate those data points. And now these are the data sources that are available to me. So I have three databases. One is the studies in progress, which I'm going to take off because obviously they're in various states of completion, and I don't want to pull from data that's halfway done. Then we have our historical benchmarks and our historical. So what that is about every 3 years we go ahead and back up all of our data and kind of clean our system. So these are the two databases that give me the rich history of data that we've got in Clearview. I'm going to go ahead and not choose an industry code, but if I wanted to refine this by an industry code, I could certainly do that. And I'm not going to compare it to any other platforms, but I know that this organization is about 6,000 employees, so I'm going to go ahead and pick, you know, for this to give me data in a size band of 5 to 7,500. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. Now, what this output field is here, this output tab, gives me access to every field that we collect through the Clearview Analyzer when we do a total cost of ownership study. So I can just pick as many of these as I want, and you can see they're organized kind of along the line of the methodology that we use in Clearview. So I'm going to pick some of the TCO averages and say I want to show them the number of data points and the number of studies that I have. I want to show them the average total cost of ownership, the average PEPY, and maybe I want to show the average number of employees for that group as well. Then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to kind of create this report to show different staffing levels of different groups that might be involved to sustain this PeopleSoft application. So I'm going to pick the salary cost of people that support HR and payroll and the number of FTEs per year that are allocated. I'm going to go down to my maintenance labor and pick up the salary cost of my IT people and the FTE allocation per year of them. I could drill this down to, time spent auditing time cards or whatever I want to at a task level, but I'm going to keep it at this level. And I'm going to also go down here and pick my field labor, which is the management engagement or the time spent by managers to do things with HR and payroll using PeopleSoft. And I'm going to go ahead and save that report. And so you'll see that it's fairly quickly gone back and hit the database and brought me some data. I've got 364 data points, 206 studies. Difference between the two is data points would be a specific pillar within a study versus a study which is a comprehensive study. So in some we may only have payroll HR, and some we might have learning and performance, and others, which is why that data points is typically higher than the studies. This gives me the average TCO, average employee size, the average per employee cost, the processing labor salary cost of payroll and HR, the average processing labor staff would be 8.63, and then this would be the maintenance labor and the maintenance labor staff and the average manager engagement cost. This line is kind of breaking that out now and saying, okay, of this group of PeopleSoft studies, show me just the ones that are 5,000 to 7,500 in size. So in that we had 83 data points and 56 studies, and you can see that the average TCO changes a little bit, and we get into an average cost of employer to about $6,058 and our average PEPYs. I can also drill into this and see kind of for payroll and HR, which are the two pillars that I picked, how that average PEPY is being calculated across the different elements of cost that we collect in Clearview, how many data points and average employees in that group. I can run that for the entire group of PeopleSoft if I want and just quickly expand and close those. I have the ability now to print that. So I can create, just by clicking my print screen here, a PDF that I can take with me. You can see that it's picked up. My report is great text. I could, like I said, have any message there that I wanted to. I also have the ability to expand this to a CSV, so I can open this up in Excel and do whatever I want to do with that data and be more flexible with how I want to present that data if I choose to. That is now, as you can see, part of the library. So that stays here, and I have the ability to just run that anytime. I can copy it and do something different with it. I can edit it by just opening that up and getting right back into the sheet that I need to, or I can, of course, delete it. So that's kind of how the analytics work, and hopefully we have given you a pretty good idea there of what we can do in this area of helping you connect and with your prospect and help them learn things about what they might be doing in their organizations. Next would be help me understand my business. So this is where we want to talk about the fact that Clearview provides industry-leading technology to easily assist your prospects to gather data from their organizations and determine their HCM total cost. And so a couple of things that we provide. One thing you can see here is we have some videos that we've prepared that are intro videos that we can just show to those clients and help them understand the process. They're very well done. And then we have the reports and the surveys that we leverage to actually do the total cost studies. So due to the interest of time, I'm going to go back into Clearview. I'm not going to actually go into one of those videos, but I'll just click this sales tools, and if you go to training videos, that's where this is, and we've got our marketing person who's put together a very good video on how Clearview works and how it's set up and what's required of the client to do a study and all those kind of things. So if you have time, please take a look. I'm going to open up this Demo Corp public company that I have here, and I'm going to go over to this reporting hub so I can talk about what a total cost of ownership report looks like and what we would deliver to your prospect at the conclusion of a total cost study. So we have 8 pillars that are configured within Clearview, and we can deploy these in a study in any combination. So if you want to do just payroll and time, we can shut the rest of these off. If you want to do a payroll only study, we can. And like this example shows, we can include all 8 pillars and do a fairly comprehensive HCM study within that organization. Within each of those pillars, the recipe that we leverage to put together this study and pull together total costs is represented on this elements of cost wheel. So one thing we would pull is the labor in each area that's required to process gross to net payroll or process time or do benefits administration. We would pull the department budgets, the facility costs, corporate overhead exchange fees, those kind of things. We'd look at the IT labor. So, if they've got database administrators and programmers involved in sustaining an in-house application, we want to know those. System maintenance non-labor would be all of the hardware, software, disaster recovery, maintenance fees, costs of systems that are in place, including any upgrade fees that might be depreciated or future upgrade costs that they're looking at, those type of things that have to do with the deployment of the system. Outsourcing fees would be things like, maybe I'm in-house payroll, but I pay someone to do my W-2s and tax filings and garnishments, or I have a COBRA provider, a drug screener, a background check provider, or somebody that I pay for salary surveys. Those kind of things get collected in the outsourcing fee section. And then in field labor would be our measure of how well we deploy services in the organization to our customers, which are the managers and employees. So these are more time and motion type things of how long does it take to approve a time card, give a performance appraisal, schedule employees for work, put employees in learning, that kind of thing. And then we have this general information piece that comes along for the ride no matter how we configure the study, and that gives us the number of employees, number of managers, different hourly rates that we use to configure the costs. And while we're doing these studies, we always want to look at risk and opportunities and determine, if there are some low-hanging fruits that they can take advantage of quickly and do some things to get some quick gain, or things that they can do through better integration and seams to reduce error rates and things across their HCM footprint. So as I get out of that, you can see that this report tells them very clearly what their total cost of ownership is at $26.3 million for this example. And then we break those costs out so they can see what's labor, what's non-labor, what is maintenance, and what is field labor, and all those things. We give that to them obviously in element of cost layout too, so they can see where their money's being spent in the different areas. I love this because, frankly, a lot of times you go into an engagement thinking you're doing a payroll upgrade, and all of a sudden you learn you're spending $4.2 million in recruiting, and that becomes a focus. And so it's an opportunity to expand business for you as a salesperson and talk about things that perhaps weren't even on the radar in terms of scope at the outset. Then we did give them some benchmarking. So we typically do 3 benchmarks, one based on size. So we pull from the system organizations who have a similar size that they do based on a band. We pull their common industry code and see how many we have that are in a common industry. And then we look at the platform as well to see if we have other prospects that have used the same payroll platform that they do and where their averages are. So in this case, if I look at payroll, and I won't go through all of these, but payroll has a $6 million cost, 5,000 employees, about $1,212 per employee, which puts them in the 8th percentile as a performer, meaning that 92% of other companies outperform them. And you can kind of see the numbers here, $1,200 against 517 and 191 companies that are 5,000 to 7,500. In retail sales, we had 154 comps that we compared them to that averaged 362. And JD Edwards, we had 69 companies using JD Edwards to process payroll like this company, who came in at 941. So we'll give that to them by pillar. We also have the ability to break that up into a TCO detail. So this is where you can really start to tell a good story and help them understand, as I said on the slide, how to understand some of their business challenges and their business. So if I look at this, I can see that their labor at $77 is pretty in line here. I mean, I got 129 on the platform with JD Edwards, 66 in retail sales, and 73 in peer group size. One of the things that stands out to me here is they have $7 in maintenance, which means they're doing things on the cheap. They're not spending a lot of money for this platform. So $7 versus 54, 17, and 53 would tell me they're a little underinvested in technology. And when I look at their field labor, they are involving managers in a lot of payroll processes, probably entering time into systems. Who knows what that could be? But it's 1,044 per person to do that. So they're keeping their payroll labor down, but they're causing their managers to do a lot of the work because they don't have the automation through self-service portals or whatever else. These folks are having to do things in paper and probably walk them around for signatures, and that could probably lead to a lot of non-compliance issues and different things. So this would be an issue that I would want to talk to them about, and we'd want to try and lower that manager engagement cost so that managers are doing what they're supposed to be doing to raise revenue and generate revenue for the organization. So that's just an example of how that works. And of course, we can break that out for HR, benefits, recruiting, whatever we include in the study. So now I'm going to go back to my slide and kind of talk about how we can help them understand their challenges. And so one of the things that we have here, and I don't know why I've got this thing, there it was, the TCO reports. Let me go back to that, I apologize. The TCO reports provide both summary level and detail level about the costs and allocations that help them understand where they are, where they're over or under invested, as I've showed you. And so they can kind of be educated as decision makers on the fact that those HCM costs exist. And I think one of the biggest challenges is when we give a prospect our numbers about a proposal before we help them understand the fact that they have pretty significant costs in their organization. As I work with a lot of these folks, I think many C-level people think they have understated costs, and they probably understate that, as our data shows, by about 65%. So CFO might look at his organization and go, I've got 4 people in payroll that make an average of 50 grand. There's 200,000, and I pay 250 for PeopleSoft. There's $500,000 in cost, when in reality it's probably more on the 6 million side. So when we throw out a number for a proposal for our services and systems that appears to them to be more than what they perceive the cost is, that creates a negative point already. And helping them understand the TCO and their costs and the fact that they're there really helps to diffuse that significantly, in my opinion. Helping them with solutions to their challenges. Once we do that total cost of ownership study and present that back to the organization, we typically step out a little bit of the process and let you come in and do your analysis. Coming out of that analysis process is a solution set and pricing that comes back to us, and we're able to then load that into the Clearview Analyzer. And we have the ability within the Clearview tool to actually migrate the data that they provide in the total cost structure into ROI builders that become very easily configured to develop the ROI. So I'm going to talk about that for a minute and show how that accentuates the advantages of the proposal. So I'm going to go back into my study here and open up DemoCorp Public. Once you've concluded the analysis, you would give us information about the pricing, and so we would plug that in on this price sheet that's very easily configured. We put in the annual fees, the implementation, if there's training costs, what the contract period is, and we can even finance or not finance it, because we often run into that where the implementation gets financed over a few years if they qualify. And as I mentioned, for every survey that we activate over here in the Assign Manage Survey group, Clearview actually creates an ROI builder and picks that data up and formats it into a structure where we can very easily create our ROI. So to kind of show you how that works and how easy it is to deal with, you'll notice that these tabs are kind of under the same line as the survey and the same configuration as that wheel that I talked about, but you can see it's brought in all of these different resources, and it's showing me, for this director of payroll, her annual salary and the cost with the loaded 23% load factor. And I now also understand where she's spending her time. So I know the things that she's doing, and I can look at this and say, you know what? Status change form data entry, she's not going to do anymore because we're going to give her a portal and she won't do that. That'll be kind of feeding automatically through from the managers. So you can imagine it would take a long time to go through all of these with a business consultant and configure every single resource and every single task. So to make that easy, what we do is we create a default savings percentage link here. So if I open this up, what our tool has done is it's gone through and looked at all the tasks that got recorded in this study, and it said, here are the tasks and the dollar amounts that they equate to. And so I can go in here and say, you know what, I think I'm going to affect this $96,000 of generating reports by 75%. The status change form data entry is going to pretty much go away. And I can set those percentages and simply load those, and it will push those values into each one of these resources and configure it for me, which makes it very easy. I can then go through, all of the other pieces here and see where my savings are. If I go down to field labor, I can see this manager's processing transactions at about 1.9. I have the ability to look at this and see where that cost comes from. So I can see that they have 50,000 transactions, 90% of them are done by managers, 45 minutes per form, and the average manager rate of pay is 47.43, and they have a 23% benefit load. So that's the math that ties into this $1.9 million. And then I can, set my savings percentage. This would be a soft save because we're not going to let managers go, obviously, but I could take some hard value here if I wanted to. So that's kind of an overview of how that gets configured. Once those calculators are configured, the data is automatically feeding our ROI reporting structure. So in this case, I can see the $26 million total cost. Based on the way I've configured my ROI, that total cost is projected to drop to $19.8 million year over year. And I've got another $13.1 million in risk and opportunity that I want to discuss as well. So a pretty good ROI, just based on this demo. Then we give them the ability. We've talked to a lot of C-level people. We know they're going to want to know what's direct, what's indirect, or hard and soft. So we give them the total cost, where the savings are, what's hard, what's soft, and how they look first and second years of contract. If I get questioned on any of this data as I'm presenting it by a C-level that wants to understand where the $1.3 million in labor came from, I can click any of these numbers and quickly access an automated appendix that gives me every resource, every percentage that I've put in here. So that they can clearly see that we've done their homework. This gives a lot of credit to their folks who have done the surveys, and it helps the executives understand that the work that's been done in here is validated and tremendously accurate. When we get to explaining this $13 million, we can go down here and each line item is spelled out. We can go into the math, so I can look at for example, this payroll inflation rate. I can open this up and learn how I got this $5.1 million error rate. It's based on a 3% error rate, and you can see how I calculated that error rate across these different components of cost, and then we're projecting a 25% impact on that 3% error rate by automating payroll, putting in some of the self-service things and that type of thing. We also give them the implementation, so they understand that they're going to have to spend $410,000 in this case to get these results. And down at the bottom here with this project impact summary kind of pulls this all together nicely so that they can see what their savings is based on the TCO to TCO related items, what the impact of the risk and opportunity costs are, how the implementation is going to affect it, and then netting it all out to a 26 million to 7.59178 first year cost. So that's kind of how the ROI reporting works. We can run that by pillar. So if they want to see their savings by HR, by time, by benefits, we can produce that. We can also run this by cost element. So I can look at processing labor, see what their current FTE counts are across the different pillars and what the savings will be. So this is telling me they're going from just under 60 people to under 40 people if they do this project. Going back to our slide here and moving on to the next piece, we have the ability to kind of help with this relationship overall. So one of the things that we try to do is increase the sales synergy, which helps you to create a relationship of trust through intelligent, structured touch points. And as we've kind of gone through these pieces, hopefully the analytic tools help you find meaningful data to get your prospects' attention and get them thinking about evaluating their current situation. You can provide industry-leading processes for helping the prospect understand and evaluate their current costs. Use the benchmarks to help educate them on where dollars are being spent and where they may have challenges. Help the prospect build an ROI, which is a C-level friendly, we think fairly easy to understand and explain reporting structure, and which includes the hard, soft dollars as well as the risk savings. And then finally, we can deliver results leveraging a third-party expert, which makes it a little bit more palatable to the prospects because you're trying to sell them something. It kind of helps to have us as a barrier to do that presentation and be the experts in the total cost and the ROI. And we hope, obviously, that through all of this, it creates a positive partnership, which ultimately ends in a positive result of you selling business to the prospect. Again, like to thank you for your time this morning and invite any feedback to obviously be given to us, and we will certainly listen to that and do all that we can to incorporate your ideas. Thanks for your time.